Is the Fox Podium the real game changer that everyone is claiming? Well, in this series of videos, we're going to find out. So part one, let's do an unboxing and overview of the product. Ooh. So right away, it's definitely a heavy fork. Feels like a dual crown fork. So let's get the camera and zoom in on this beautiful puppy. So here's everything that comes in the box. We do have a new brake mounting hardware that looks intimidating inside of the repair manual, but looking on the table looks very simple. So here's the Podium itself. Nothing too out of the normal. We got normal star nut, more brake mounting hardware. Bottom of the fork looks oddly similar to a Fox 40 with these quad pinch bolt assembly. Looks like we got 5mm to loosen up. Nice touch here. They included a 5mm instead of a 6. So we only have one set of Allen keys to remove the axle. The floating axle assembly looks oddly similar to a Fox 40 or a Fox Vanilla from 10 years ago. Both the 10-year-old Fox 36 and the Podium feature the 20mm axle. So most people don't have this type of axle. So it adds a lot of complexity and cost to get another wheel or another hub. But thankfully Jensen USA had these 20mm downhill wheels on fire sale right here. So if you see these massively good deals at 50% off, you better jump on them because they're not going to last forever. As per usual with Fox forks, we have the damper side on the bottom. So I do believe, and I'm not sure, we'll find out in part 5 of this video, what's going on inside of this damper. Dual high-speed, low-speed adjuster, just like Grip X2. Top side of the damper definitely has a new vibe on it. Kind of a bigger knob and a bleeder valve in the middle. Okay. The air string definitely has a different vibe with the air filling valve on the bottom, which does make things a little more difficult, but it should be all right. Top side of the air spring on the Podium. Let's see what we got in here. Just basically reverse foot nuts. So I'm assuming this is holding the bottom on. The air spring is kind of the boring side, but inverted forks are pretty cool because we can see the secondary spring force inside of them. Filling up the Podium is going to be a little bit more complicated with this bottom zone down here. So the fork comes with 60 psi in from the factory. And let's let all that air out so I can show you the secondary spring force. So I'm going to double check this, make sure there's no pressure inside of the air chamber. So here's just a simple scale, which I refer to as the $10,000 dyno as a joke. So I'm going to see what it takes to bottom out this fork with no air. Okay, so 52 pounds of pressure. So that is one of the problems with air springs, air suspension, is the secondary spring force is pretty massive, but you just have to account for it when you're doing your setup. The Grip X2 adjuster is pretty cool because it's all black. And it takes quite a bit of effort to wind this thing up. And then we have the bleeder valve underneath the knob there, hidden. This is a 58mm head crown Fox Podium. So 58 is this dimension right here. And then there's a 68 that's a little bit wider for bikes with a bigger head tube. The Grip X2 knob is very similar to the Fox 38 version. There's a big gap between clicks, and it features 10 clicks of high-speed compression and about 18 clicks of low-speed compression. Moving on to the bottom of the damper, The two-way adjustable rebound dials. We have 8 clicks of high-speed rebound, which hasn't changed since the Grip 2. And 16 clicks of low-speed rebound, this one on the bottom here. So I went and counted all these clicks and moved them all around. And when Fox shipped this out of the factory, they put every single adjuster, rebound, and compression into the middle. So there's a reason they did that, because it creates really good balance inside of the fork. So currently there's a Fox 38 on my bike, so let's get some pictures of it with the 38, and then we'll put the Podium on, see the difference. Let's take a look at some visual differences. The Podium definitely complicates adding a fender, where the 38 has one of, or the best fender in the entire mountain bike game, coming from a manufacturer there. The pinch bolt assembly on Fox 38 is very simple with one bolt, and then we have quad bolts here. But the biggest difference, guys, is basically the Podium axle means frickin' business here. With the brake adapters, fender, and mud included, let's see how much my Fox 38 weighs. 5 pounds and 2 ounces. And then let's get the Podium. 5 pounds and 13 ounces, so it's only a 10-ounce difference. So basically, the Podium weighs just about as much as a Suntour 38mm fork. So a lot of people are like totally hung up on weight, but I can tell you the heavier a fork is, the more confident it feels. One of the first videos I ever made was a Marzocchi 888, and the thing weighed about 8 pounds. And it was definitely more confident than the Boxer, coming in like 2 pounds lighter. So I'm pretty sure because of the extra mass and weight of the Fox Podium and its massive axle, it's gonna be pretty confident. So next week, guys, on part 2, we're going to be mounting up the Fox Podium, because it is a pretty complicated setup area to make sure we get the brake cable right and pound some star nuts in. Finally, guys, a box showed up that's more exciting than all the bills have been showing up. So we're going to mount up the Fox Podium today. So we're going to need a whole bunch of tools. So let's start out with what you need. We need a 20mm downhill wheel. So check out Jensen USA. They may have these in stock, fire sailed, massive holes for your dual crown forks. So let's get the fork out of the box and start getting it ready. So since this is a single crown fork, we gotta punch in a star nut, and we're gonna need some tools. It can be a little bit easier just to bring it to a shop and pay them 25 bucks to put a star nut in. But if you're a DIY mechanic guy, this is the tool set you're gonna need. So we need to cut down the steer tube because it comes in at about 9.5 inches or 40 centimeters. I have cut these too short and completely screwed myself. The best thing to do is just cut them at 8 inches, because then it can go on any bike in the entire world. Eight inches comes in about 200 millimeters, and we'll just put a little mark right there. First tool on the list is the pipe cutting tool. You can get this on Amazon, and you can also get it at the hardware store. These aren't the best tool, but they do the job. Ideally, you put it inside of a vise, and clamp it and saw it, but this does work. The Problem with the pipe cutting tool is it creates a burr, so you can't put the stem on. So what you're gonna need is a little bit of sandpaper and kind of knock the edge down. And then this is a plumbing deburr tool for inside of it. Until the stem will go on. There we go. So you can see there's a whole bunch of little metal shavings that we want to clean up. I guess ideally you do it like that so the metal shavings fall down. So one thing to note here is I've been playing around with this on the table for a couple hours, getting acquainted with it, and I already put a scratch in it. So you need to be pretty careful with this fork because apparently it's prone to minor scratching. So now that's why I have this moving blanket down on the table. Located in the package, we do have a new star nut. So this is another Amazon tool that I'm installing the bolt on. So this little collar will guide this thing in. Open it up, look, rather than driving it too deep. The ideal depth on the star nut is right here, and mine is a little bit on the deep side, even though I didn't measure it. Removing the crown race can go very simple if you have a specialized bike and it has a split ring. But certain frame designs make this extraordinarily difficult. So there's a $40 tool on Amazon right here, and it is a crown race extractor. And I need to give this back to my friend Michael. So you put this on and you get underneath it and then you can hammer it out. Fortunately, the specialized split crown race works on most bikes. So I can just go into the collection and install it. Should be invention of the year. Crown race, split ring, fingernail installation. Whenever you have a new fork, you'll run into weird little problems of spacers and etc. here. So I have a massive collection. These aren't too expensive on the Amazon. These little stem spacers. Ideally, you get the large ones. Crown race is installed. Now we're gonna install the bearing on there. Get this on the bike. So I got a little stool underneath the bike to hold everything up. So after already finding out that the Podium is very delicate, make sure we're using some protective rags here. Tiny little gap right there. I know they make certain top caps that don't interfere, but it's just a safer bet to put a little gap right there. There's certain brands out there that allow you to convert your wheel from 15mm axle to 20mm. DT Swiss isn't one of them, but this is a devoted 20mm axle. Just to make it clear, this is what comes on dual crown downhill bikes. So the measurement of this is 20 by 110, so it's a boost spacing. So the diameter here is boost. It's the same as your normal bike. It just has a thicker piece that holds the wheel into place. So there's a company on the internet that I actually looked into, and they're on eBay, linked in the description, that sells conversion kits so you can use your older standard enduro wheel, but you're not going to get the full benefits of the Podium by doing that because a lot of the stiffness out of the Podium is going to be coming from this thicker axle. So I have both wheels here, so let's take a look at them. 20mm downhill Podium wheel. We can see how much light is going through that hole. Then we have the 15mm enduro wheel here, and we don't have as much light going through there. The Podium is a 200 millimeter direct mount rotor, and it says it takes up to 220, and the wheel in the background is 223. So we're gonna need some brake adapters. I'm gonna need a plus 23 brake adapter. Installing the brake rotor in there loosely first before the rest of the cable I found to be a little bit easier. There's two plastic pieces included inside of the box. So this piece right here, don't use this piece if you're going to use the mud guards. If you're going to leave the mud guards or the skid guards, whatever you want to call them, you're only going to use this little piece, and then it hooks in right here. The upper brake line routing is super easy to accomplish with a 2 millimeter Allen key. You're going to loosen up the pinch bolts, and then they have massive arrows and stickers, so you can't get this wrong. The arrows just basically line up with the brake hose and the opening. Definitely not in the proper order, but this one is a little bit of a pig to get into place. Squeeze it into the mud guards, or the adapter I set on the side if you're running no mud guards, and then provided inside of the box is two small 2.5 millimeter bolts, and you bolt it into there. All right, let's test fit the wheel in there. So plenty of room, and the brake hose is out of the way. Because I believe because I'm running the maximum brake rotor size, there's quite a tight kink right here. So what I'm going to do is remove the brake caliper and see if that kink goes away. Because it's almost touching, it's literally almost touching the stanchion, and that would wear out the very expensive stanchion on here. So if we were to direct mount 200 millimeter rotor, let's see how it'll look. Just as bad. So there's no benefit of going with a smaller rotor on here. I'm going to remove the mud guards and show the alternate setup. So the mud guard bolts are extraordinarily tight. They're probably Loctited in. On the damper side of things, there's a little cover. And I think this is so we don't have those exposed bolt holes. So this secondary piece in the box is going to be our new brake guide tool. With the provided non-mud guard, it's absolutely disgusting. That is so atrocious. So I'm thinking it's going to look better with the mud guards on, but I'm going to leave the mud guards off for a little bit. But definitely leave them on for the aesthetic appearance. Installing the wheel on inverted forks is not fun. If you want to do it in the bike stand and struggle, be my guest. But flipping the bike upside down is going to make this whole bunch easier. Okay, the way to get this in is I'm pulling up with the right hand in the spokes right here. So I'm pulling the entire fork up on both sides, and then I'm threading it in. That way it kind of evens the fork out. So you want to tighten this up to the torque spec, because if it breaks, you're effed. There's a lot of hype around the Fox Podium. So is it the game changer everyone claims? In today's challenge, we're going to find out. The most challenging trail closest to me is going to be the test. Oh. And the best fork I ever felt down this trail was the Boxer. Woo! Okay, it's not magic. And it's not a dual crown fork, and I probably just scratched the hell out of it. Oh my God. Maybe I gotta take my time. Woo! It definitely has a different feel than the 38. And I have zero warm-up and rides on this. And this trail is pretty difficult. Oh. So first impression, whew, came in a little bit too hot. Definitely a super confident fork, but wildly different feel than 38. And I'm praying that nothing got scratched in the first 5 seconds. Oh, it did right there. Got a little scratch. Okay, I gotta catch my breath. Whew. So it did clink on the first little huck to flat up there at the top. Oh. It fully clanked like a normal Fox fork, but I've only set this up in the garage. Like minimal setup, kind of straight out of the factory deal. Okay, let's continue on. Little Moab. Woo! But man, that was a pretty impressive ride. And if you've ever tried a Manitou Mezzer, it feels like a Mezzer. It just kind of like floated over the rocks. So I'm gonna get a different camera so you can see this thing floating over the rocks because it was really impressive. Run 2 on the podium was super impressive. Ultra impressive. Just simply because I wasn't trying to talk. You know, those people who ride and talk, apparently it's a skill you need to learn because I don't have it. That thing was clanking. Clanking meaning like hard bottoming out, making a metallic clanking noise. So it's definitely got like a DH feeling air spring. Meaning you're gonna have to put a whole bunch of tokens in here, but dude, it is... Who cares about stiff? It just feels really, really good. In the straight line chunk down there, like impressively good floating through there. For sure the best feeling single crown fork, maybe best fork ever down Little Moab here. Rocky Mountain altitude, 170 front, 165 rear with a mullet configuration. The rear shock is a 230 by 65 EXT E-Storia, rocking a 550 pound spring with a DH casing high roller at 28 PSI on the front and a DH casing DHR2 on the rear, rocking 30 PSI because of this rocky slab. I'm the Otter. I'm 37 years old, about 185 pounds, and I'm an average rider. It really really, really likes to go fast. Like, but how playful is it? Does it like to jib? Look for a new line. This is not the trail to find jibs on, but so this is the amazing trail I've been riding over and over and over, dialing in the Podium. And looking back at it, it's like, dude, it's pretty savage. Whew. The Podium passed the torture test with 5 stars, but life's not all torture, chunk, bike parks. So let's see how it does on a little bit of trail ride, because that's what you normally get in the winter. There's no chairlifts, high elevations, full of snow. So let's go. I gotta turn the bike on. Okay, so it is an air spring, so it should pop pretty good. So it definitely has that different weird feel like the Mezzer, like in the corners. It just doesn't feel like a normal 38 regular fork. Ooh. So this trail is like blue trail. They're honestly like more like hiking trails. So maybe it's Podium is just like the magic fork of like handles chunk over there, like super good, and then is amazing on little boringer, simpler trails. Because that's why you don't want a dual crown fork, because it's like overkill for a trail like this one, which is called Little Maui. Couple side hits down the hiking trail, like when it lands, like the fork it feels like the perfect stiffness. You don't want it like too stiff, but it's not like no noodle at all. Ooh. Okay, so just looking down at this fork, like when you look down at the Podium, like it feels like the tubes feel huge. Like it's a real confident feeling fork. When I look down on my bike and there's a 36 down there, it feels like weak sauce. And this thing is just ultra confident. Unfortunately, these trails are just not pounding blue flow trails, so gotta go find some of those. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, the next spot, guys. I feel like my Fox 38 has been getting overwhelmed on. It's kind of a cross-country trail spot, Cascade Locks. But there's this one super savage section that's just been completely smoking my 38. So we're gonna go see how the Podium's gonna do in that Pacific zone. So the Podium's really standing out in the chunk, and then it's clapping super hard on the hucks to flat. So it's gonna take some setup. But overall, woo, feels really good. We'll hear it clap here. Up around these corners is where I've been setting forks up all winter. We'll see how the Podium does. This section, it feels 20%, 10% better than a 38. So what it does is it kind of like doesn't fall in the holes. It kind of skips over the top of them. Hopefully there's no scratches. And I'll show you the spot. And we'll hook up the other camera on it. So when you come through here on a 38, right here, the bike gets pinched right here. So it's like pinch. And what the Podium is doing amazing is it's not falling into the holes. It's kind of skipping over them and kind of maintaining speed and going fast. Okay. So there's the section. Second time I came through it with the Podium, I was going a little bit faster and that pinching thing happened, and it definitely performed 10-20% better than a Fox 38. So this is a pretty chunky trail. I've been setting up 38s, EXTs on all winter. So let's see how the Podium stacks up. The Podium is hands down a game changer and not hype, but it doesn't come cheap. I picked my fork up at Jensen USA, full retail, and I needed a new wheel. So if you can afford it, definitely go for it. So the number one adjustment when setting up suspension should be the rear shock. If you don't have a badass piece of suspension like this one, stop what you're doing and go buy a good shock. There is pages and pages of free charts from Fox in the owner's manual on how to set up your Podium, but I made a paid PDF setup guide linked in the first comment to save you an incredible amount of time. The Fox Podium is a high performance piece of suspension. So whenever we have high performance suspension, that means it needs to be serviced more frequently, and the setup procedure is definitely more involved, or you're not going to get the right results. Woo! I've been riding the Podium for about a week, and it is a very linear airspring. So when they say the word linear, that means it's very soft. It likes to go deep into its travel. So this means we need to build up the right amount of air pressure and tokens straight out of the gate. We're going to add some tokens to the Fox Podium because of its ultra linear airspring design. Incredibly important to let the air pressure out slowly so the fork's leg stays completely extended like this. So I'm going to double check the air Schrader valve. It's completely empty. I'm going to get the Ugga Tugga out to remove the top cap, which is a cassette tool like all other forks on the market. My 170 millimeter Fox Podium here comes with 2 tokens from the factory. Whenever you feel like you need more support or bottom out control, and you decided you're going to put tokens in it, I highly recommend putting 2 tokens in it at a time. This way you can really feel the difference, because sometimes you can't feel 1 token. So we're going to 4 tokens here, because I've already spent a week riding this and I know that this is a super linear air spring that needs more bottom out control. I don't recommend using an Ugga Tugga, but it makes quick work of things. Almost ready to get rid of the noodle, but we got a couple more steps. Installing the wheel on this can be a little bit of a pig unless the bike's upside down. So you want to get it into the dropouts, get the brake rotor where it needs to go, and then we're going to work it. The axle is sticking out maybe an inch or so. Everything's kind of roughly in place. The trick to this is to pull the wheel up. Sometimes I even struggle with this stupid thing. I actually have to push the air spring side down. Here's a huge mistake for you guys to avoid. The Fox Podium, the Fox 40, the Marzocchi 58, anything with a quad pinch bolt assembly like this one requires substantially less torque than your single crown fork. So this may be your first 20 mil axle ever. What you need to know is the torque spec is substantially lower because of the quad pinch bolt assembly. The torque spec on the 20 millimeter axle, which we are going to tighten first, is 13.5 millimeters. This is a $600 snap-on torque wrench. Do you need this? 100% not. $600 snap-on torque wrench versus good and tight, and see what's the difference, because you may not have a torque spec or a wrench on the side of the trail. So let's try it again. With the torque wrench on, 14 Newton meters. It's pretty light. So if you don't have a torque wrench at home, this is about how much force you would do. You just want that thing snugged up. Do not over tighten that. So these are even less pressure. These are like 5 foot-pounds of torque. And I'm just gonna good and tight these because it's good enough for me. So when I remove the top cap, there's actually oil all over here. So you do not want to mix oil in brake parts. So make sure you avoid this mistake.
And they were being treated as slaves.
We're going to start on the air pressure side. It's incredibly important that you guys own a shock pump, and I highly recommend a digital shock pump. Link to the description is my trusted tool set to make all these videos. So you may hear suspension people rant and rave about sag, set sag, set sag, set sag. And the reason for setting sag is so the wheel, the suspension system, can fall into the holes and maintain traction. It's very simple. If you want to know more about suspension, you got to go to the motocross world. And I have a whole video diving into this book. So I was on the internet and I read every single piece of information I could find on the Podium, and it looks like Fox is building setup guides like myself, but they're not quite as personal because these are corporate style videos. So this little piece of cardboard is going to have our sag measurements. So the reason for the cardboard is we don't damage the stanchion. So now we know the negative chamber is completely full of air. We can just pump it all the way up to the 100. 100 PSI is definitely on the stiffer side of things. So I have approximately 15% sag, but I need to show you this trick. So because this is a high-end piece of suspension that's super plush, we have to lift the bike up. So this is called bike sag when I lift it up. So now we're above 15% sag, and this is a really good starting point. An amazing suspension setup is a bunch of redundant, boring processes. So let's recheck the pressure with the digital shock pump after measuring the sag. So we're at 94, so we lost 10 PSI. So you should work on the damper before setting the sag. The compression, especially the low speed compression, should be in the fully open setting before you set the sag. So I have my chart up here. We have 10 clicks of high speed compression. So I was 2 from closed on high speed compression. So for my previous test rides, I was running a lot of high speed compression. So we're gonna put the high speed compression and the low speed compression into the fully open setting. Oh my gosh. They're smooth jaw pliers that don't damage parts. So we're gonna move all of these rebound adjusters into the open setting. Slow, redundant, boring process. So now I gotta remeasure the sag because I removed the damper from the equation. So now I'm significantly closer to the 20% mark, even with 105 PSI inside of there. So it's an okay place to start. We know there's 105 in here. There's a handful of factors that'll make bolts come loose, from temperature, vibrations, just simple settling. So before heading out on the trail, after doing all these little adjustments, we're gonna run through those pinch bolts. Pinch bolt assemblies are notorious to come loose. Remember, the torque spec is extraordinarily low on these pinch bolts. Tight. Last but not least, we have tire pressure. So I'm running DH casing tires, and they're at 20, and I'm gonna run 24 for the test track. It's safer to run more pressure than less. Right now, the damper is completely open, and the process I'm about to show you is the most fastest, effective way to get an amazing setup. So I'm heading into the test track, and there's always something to forget. So we gotta hit these bleeder valves. This one's got quite a bit of air coming out on the air spring side. Fully open damper, 4 tokens, only because I rode this for quite a while with 2 tokens and it was super plush. So the trick is to like dumb your riding down, because the rebound is in the fully counterclockwise fast position. So I'm just gonna cruise and kind of feel it out. Super mellow test run. What super fast rebound will do is make it eat chunk super good, but there's no chunk here, so we're just cruising. Riding super familiar trails in a dumbed down fashion will ensure you stay safe. Feel the fork out. I like to use this rule: 70% feel, 30% sag indicator O-ring. So I'm definitely not using all the travel, but the fork felt incredibly harsh with 105 PSI. Regardless, I'm still going to spend some time on it and ride around with this high pressure. 90, back to 90. Dropping the pressure down to about 90. This is where I've been riding the fork all week. 90 PSI. This is like my famous huck to flat zone. So with 10 PSI less in the fork, that was pretty good. So working on the air pressure first. 90 PSI, 10 PSI less than before. I'm using just about all the travel. If I let all the air out, and squinched it down, that's probably bottom out. I would expect it to bottom out on that trail because there's a bunch of stupid hucks to flat. But just gonna continue feeling it out. So I'm gonna lower this down to 80. So with 80 PSI and 4 tokens, oh yeah. 80 PSI. Without the right support out of the fork, the bike is kind of nose heavy. So with 80 PSI, it's definitely too low on the pressure side. So think about the air pressure as the ride height, put majority of your effort into this. Ramp up and rebound. Oh boy. The upside down forks have kind of a different feel, so I gotta do this a couple times. Huck to flat. Okay, so it had a pretty vicious metallic clank on that 3-foot huck to flat. So I gotta figure out what adjustment to make. The rebound felt usable, but what this actually means is I gotta put more tokens in. It takes up to 8 tokens and it has 4 tokens in it. I have 2 more in my backpack, but that clanking was not good over there. Installing 2 additional tokens, changing camera lenses. This is the noise you want to avoid in your Fox Fork, a harsh metallic clank. This is getting more difficult than I anticipated. I'm out of tokens, so as a last resort, I'm gonna move the high speed to the middle. So 5 clicks of high speed. High speed compression will slow down the high speed movements on the fork. So I put this thing into maximum high speed compression because I'm out of tokens. Successful job. We got the ramp up department wrapped up. Ramp up and rebound tuning, same set of trails. We're looking for high shaft speeds. Get that fork moving pretty fast. So going off feel and riding a little bit faster, Podium is definitely not dialed in the rebound department. So if you don't want to get lost in these 2-way clicker clackers, this is what you're going to do. Split the clicks, put everything into the middle if it doesn't work in the full fast setting. Rerun, middle rebound. What you want to do is go off of feel, or this trick. The Podium fork has been getting pretty difficult trying to set it up for the blue flow trails. So here's the setup. It's a motorcycle mount Insta 360X5, and filming your stuff is actually incredibly powerful. So we're gonna watch the replay. So we're looking for a front wheel hop. I think it was hopping, but I'm not 100%. It's definitely hopping. It's got a really bad hop right there. So both these knobs are in the fully middle setting. So we're gonna take high speed, the big one. That was definitely a high speed impact down there. And go full slow with it. And we're gonna leave low speed where it's at and see if the Fox 2-way adjustable rebound actually works. Moving the high speed rebound to the fully slow setting or fully plus setting, running through the same section again. Felt super dialed. But I had my phone out, so we just watched the replay trail side, and it was absolutely dialed off footage and feel. So let's take a look at the wrong rebound setting and what the front wheel does, And let's take a look at the right rebound setting and what the wheel does. So at this point, I'm just gonna kind of fine tune and make a couple blanket adjustments so I can go enjoy a mountain bike ride. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just give it 5 clicks of low, 2 clicks slower on low speed. So we just added a little bit of low speed damping to the mixture, but the blanket adjustments are done. 6 tokens, 90 PSI. After 2.5 hours of hucking the flat, it's time to hit some normal jumps. Verification run. Fork is extraordinarily dialed, even when purposely overshooting the last jump here. All right, this thing is dialed. Rebound, dialed. Overshot the hell out of the first jump, just like that guy did. Super dialed, no clanking. A little bit of extreme on the setup department. But holy crap. Fork just went from like upper mid to like best. Setting your suspension up in these extreme environments will pay off because when you ride normal, everything's going to be perfectly dialed as well. Linked in the first comment in the description, guys, is the paid PDF setup guide with some additional insights. Hey Siri, set timer for 10 minutes. Hello, fellow bike nerds. My name is the Otter, and today we got the Fox Grip X Podium X2 38. We got the Podium on the table here. I spend too much of my life editing videos, so it's gonna be straight cut, sloppy as hell video. If you like it, leave a comment. So we're gonna break down behind the stanchions on the Fox Podium, because this is an absolutely incredible fork. But there's one catch. Let's break this Podium down into 3 parts. We have air spring, damper, and we got the chassis. So let's start with the chassis because it's the most interesting because it's upside down. So first of all, Fox is using Fox 20-weight gold oil on the air spring side. And it looks like 4-weight Motor X. So nothing's changed from your traditional Fox 38 internally as far as the lubrication system, which is a good thing. I think it's an absolute flaw of a design. I shouldn't say that. The 20-weight gold oil is too thick for bath oil. It's great on the air spring, just don't put it on the bath oil. If you want your foam O-rings not to puke oil, just put damper oil as bath oil on the air spring side. So that aside, let's move into the chassis. So she's a heavy girl. She comes in about 6 pounds, identical in weight to a Sun Tour 38, DVO fork 38. So the heavier a fork is, the more capable they feel. Like I've rode so many forks, people are afraid of weight. All it does is just make that thing stick to the ground and make it just eat chunk, super confident feeling. Podium is no exception. It is the most capable single crown fork I ever rode by a long shot. So we're going to rate the chassis, the air spring, and the damper 5 total stars with no editing in this video. So these upper tubes are hella stiff. There's like no flex in these. Like if I do that to a single crown 38, the thing like has quite a bit of flex. So when you look down on this thing, feels like you got a Fox 40 underneath you. It feels super confident. First day, took it out on the mega trails and just absolutely killed it. So the upper legs on this thing are truly impressive. The problem with inverted forks, phone's going nuclear. Problem with inverted forks is they become more or less a fucking noodle when you push them really hard. Like I rode the epitome of inverted forks, carbon fiber hand-laid Italian fork, and it was a really, really good fork, but it just didn't have the feel, the stoutness of the Fox Podium. So here's the lower legs on the Podium. Here's the air spring side. Kashima coating, I personally don't like the way it looks because it looks kind of gaudy. But this stuff does not scratch like black stanchion. So it's actually a really, really nice feature. It may be a little bit more slippery, but it doesn't scratch is what's so amazing about it. A little bit of a weak design here. I don't think there's any option for this, but the brake mount, that looks like a piece that could shear off pretty easily. It comes with a brace in it from the factory. And moving over to the damper side, pretty simple. We got no isolation sleeve inside of there, and I can't find the dimple. But it's just like kind of a standard air spring design. So the real genius of this Podium, honestly, it's on this table somewhere. It has to be this axle. This 20 mil axle is just an absolute beast. I have my Fox 38 axle right here. 15 millimeter axle, Fox 38. Then we have just the mega Fox Podium axle. Absolute stroke of genius because this fork is the most capable single crown fork ever because of one stupid piece. I've said this in a dozen videos I've made. Simple, genius moves are the absolute best. These overcomplicated dual rebound adjusters, they don't do you much good. Stupid shit like this is what makes a fork amazing. So the major flaw of the Podium, in my humble opinion, for the Otter mountain biking is it just feels like an incredibly stout fork, and it doesn't jib particularly good. Like the chassis, when it steers, it steers slow, so it's really good in capable terrain, but how often are you just pounding down super gnarly terrain all day long and need a dual crown fork? That's why most of us run single crown forks, because we don't have the terrain like I do, but I have to drive an hour and a half, and it's like one trail. But overall, we're gonna rate the chassis of the Podium as a solid 4.5 stars. Most capable single crown fork ever. I mean, there's no better capable single crown fork out there. So really, it's 5 stars in the chunk, 4.5 in the blue flow trails, just because of its slow, steering. This thing is incredibly stiff. It also has kind of a funny steering characteristic. I mean, we're all used to arch forks like Fox 38, and the arch gives it like, I don't know if it's better, but it just feels more natural, more at home. So let's move past the chassis on the Fox Podium. So we're getting into the most important part of mountain bike air forks, in my opinion, which is not proven science or anything, just in my mechanical knowledge aspect, testing stuff. The air spring is the most important thing on the entire suspension fork. It's 70% of how this fork is gonna ride, feel, and perform. We need a good damper, we need a good chassis, but the air spring really sets the tone. So here's Fox Podium air spring, and we got the wiggly thing, so it's the glide core. So we removed the complexity of the isolation sleeve that's in Fox 38. When we look at this Fox Podium spring, it's got a really big negative chamber. It's almost dual crown territory. So this kind of explains the way it rides. Like if you have a Fox 40 or Boxer, like the seal head's down here, and then this is like a hybrid dual crown fork. So this thing means to go downhill. I have a Fox 36 glide core air spring. I'm not going to go grab it. I'll put the picture on the screen. We can compare the difference in negative air chamber. Super simple design, so I'm going to rate this as same as the chassis, just super capable in the chunk, 5 stars, blue flow trails. It's a little bit not that great. Last part of the internal fork, so I just had a Grip X2 taken apart on the table, tore down, shim stacks. This one might have a little bit different of a tune inside of it. I'm not 100% sure. The way the damper reacts to the different chassis, it feels like a completely different damper, but it's the same damper. I just had the Fox 38 here. ripped apart Grip X and Grip X2 dampers on the table. I personally prefer the Grip X because the rebound is like go, no go. As for the Grip X2 damper, all these little shims. The shim stack is substantially more complicated on the Grip X2, making it a more downhill oriented fork and better. But the rebound is where I find the real problem with Grip X2, whether it's 38 or Podium. It works really good to, if you're trying to ride super fast and control high speed, but it feels like I can never get the set and forget. Like I always want to go down there and adjust it. So I'm going to downgrade the Grip X2 damper for its complexity issues to 4 stars. But if you're racing and trying to slow the rebound down, Grip X2 is 100% 5 stars. Because the high speed rebound is actually really effective when you start driving pretty fast, or riding pretty fast. So here's the tokens. Nothing too fancy about this. The fanciest thing about the Podium is basically its $2,000 price tag. But Fox did a really good job. It was pretty easy to take apart. You could fully home mechanic this at home. It's not super bougie Italian stuff. We got repair manuals. I didn't struggle too bad. Just needed one special tool, but I made a service video for that. My 2026 Fox Podium is leaking out of the air spring dust wiper. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to take the Fox Podium apart, and at your own discretion, you can do the Otter's fix for this. I've had more than a dozen Fox forks leaking out of the air spring dust wiper. So in this video, you're going to learn the secret Otter trick. So step 1, guys, you got to clean this Podium off super good. Keep in mind, this fork is really prone to scratching, so have some padding whenever it's resting on the table. It is a delicate, high-performance piece of suspension that requires extra precautions when working on it. In the middle of taking this fork apart, the repair manual is not out. Fox takes like a year or so for this repair manual stuff to come out. So I'm just kind of shooting in the dark here. So if I do something that does seem stupid, you can just learn from my mistake. So I put a whole bunch of padding underneath the Podium just in case it falls. I've had forks fall out of the bike stand, and we're going to learn why you shouldn't clamp onto where I have the clamp. So I'm just starting out here on the damper side. Pretty conventional high and low speed compression knob here, like a 2mm Allen key, and then it pulls straight up. Located underneath the knob is a ball or a detent, so you want to be super careful not to lose this ball bearing because you're completely effed. If you do lose it, you have to buy a brand new knob. I'm shooting in the dark here, but this 1-in-3/8 socket I found on Amazon equals over to 35mm, which is the damper cartridge on the Fox Podium. The Grip X2 damper in other forks is not this size. So the Podium does have kind of a special top cap for the damper. I linked this Harley Davidson socket in the description. It's for a motorcycle and it has the right architecture, a flat bottom. Do not try to take this apart with a crescent wrench. Either buy the one in the description that I found on Amazon or the correct Fox one that wasn't even released when I was making this video. Exclusively working on one side of the fork at a time will pay off if you have ADD, because my brain kind of goes all over the place. So the first step we're going to do anytime we're going to pull a damper out of a fork or work on a damper is move all the rebound and the compression knobs into the fully open setting. It'll make, and the rebound side, move that to full open too, or full minus. This will make it easier to compress the fork if you need to push it down, pull it up, etc. The rebound knobs on the Podium Grip X2 is a 2mm, and they decided to put Loctite on this set screw, so do kind of push down on everything and take your time. Maybe even get a little bit of a heat gun or a torch out, because this one got really close to breaking. Underneath the rebound knobs, we have a 15 millimeter, and you're going to loosen this nut up, and then you're going to put the nut back on there. Make sure you catch quite a few threads, like 4 to 5 threads, and then you're going to hammer down. And your goal is to shock this thing. You don't want to like swing on it super hard, but you do need to shock it. There'll probably be some special tool that comes out, or there is a tool out there, but you can kind of DIY through this. Once you've shocked the damper with the 15 millimeter nut, we have a cassette tool that goes in on the damper side, and you're going to loosen this up. But I'm going to discover here that you need to put the axle in this because the fork's basically a noodle unless the axle's fully bolted into place. With the axle installed, this cassette tool on the damper side lower leg will come right out. Once we have this pulled up, this cap that holds the damper, we can now dump some of the lower leg fluid out of the damper side. The top of the damper can continue on to removing this with the 35 millimeter socket that I bought on Amazon. Moving over to the air spring side, make sure the axle is in place whenever you're working on this fork. Release the pressure from this fork very slowly with the shock pump. Do not depress the Schrader valve because it makes the air spring suck down. That makes your life substantially harder. Double, triple check. All the air is removed from the fork before taking this cap off. On the bottom of the fork is a cassette tool, and this is where the tokens get installed. Use an impact gun if you're a complete hack like myself, or turn it by hand. There's a lot of flipping the fork upside down, right side up when you're taking it apart. First time's always the hardest. It's not very difficult to take apart. There's a little cap on the top of the air spring side, and it's 5 millimeter. This holds the lower stanchion into place. Because the fork was upside down, I just left it like this and loosened it up. Once this 5 millimeter bolt is loose, put it back in 3 or 4 or 5 threads, and then give it a nice tap like the damper. This will shock the air spring side loose. Once the 5 millimeter from the top of the air spring side is removed, there's another cassette tool that you loosen up. Technically, you only need to take the problem side apart. So I only needed to take the air spring side apart, but my brain was thinking conventional single crown fork. But it was a cool little experiment to fully take it apart. There's a little clip holding the air spring in, and the best way to do this is kind of a technique of chopsticks with small flat-bladed screwdrivers and or picks you have laying around. Removing the air spring from this fork is very simple. You simply tug it out of place. As we can see, the air spring shaft is fully extended out. That's because I let the air pressure out very slowly in the beginning. There's quite a bit of oil on this air spring, 20 weight Fox oil, so make sure you have some rags ready when this is coming out. My fork has maybe 50 miles on it and it's already leaking, so I'm not going to replace dust wipers and foam rings, but if you do want to replace those, you would have to do what I just showed you and remove the damper, because the damper is right in the way of the dust wipers. But I am going back together with the damper side. Once the damper is locked into place on the top, we can add the lower leg fluid in. When I was doing this, I just kind of guessed it was 40 cc's of damper oil in the lower leg. Fox did come out with some of the repair manuals, and it is 40 cc's in the lower leg fluid for the damper side, just like the Fox 38. So now we're going to move over to the air spring side of things. The air spring has this cassette tool on the top. So you can put this back into place. It actually doesn't need to come out to remove the lower leg. I was just shooting in the dark. So once that's into place, we're going to start working on the Otter's fix. So if you jackhammer your fork and ride really hard, I found the Fox 20 weight gold oil to kind of foam up and frequently leak out of the dust wiper. I actually had this problem Fox 36 Rhythm where it constantly leaked out of the air spring side. So I just tried one time to install damper oil on that air spring side, and that 36 Rhythm never leaked oil again. So what we're going to do is replace the Fox 20 weight gold oil with damper oil, and let me show you the fix. This is the foam O-ring out of the air spring side, and what I'm doing here is spraying it with alcohol and compressing it into a rag, and this will absorb most of the Fox 20 weight gold oil. We're trying to dry it out. The Motor X oil is cheaper than Fox oil. This is 2.5 weight Motor X oil, identical to the 4 weight oil except for the weight, of course. So here I got a bowl and I'm putting the foam O-ring in there. I cleaned up all the Fox 20 weight gold oil off and inside of the stanchion. So I do have to warn you, this may void your warranty if you do this. Do it at your own discretion. This is my own personal fork. The best engine builders, the best suspension builders out there, don't follow the repair manual. They have their own little tips and tricks to make stuff, OEM plus better. So this is what I do with every air spring. I stick the head of the air spring inside of there. And then I'm going to get the Fox 20 weight gold oil, which is really good for this kind of stuff. Internal sealing stuff. It's almost like grease. And then get a little cap full of Fox 20 weight gold oil. And I'm going to put it behind the air spring piston. And it's just going to make sure everything's super lubricated. And this way, we don't have to use too much suspension grease. Making sure that new used foam O-ring is nice and lubricated in the 2.5 weight oil. I'm using a plastic pick here to rest it in behind the dust wiper. And once that foam O-ring is set into place, we're ready to start going back together. Let's go together with the air spring side. So slide the stanchion into the upper part of the fork. And before you install the top cap or the bottom cap where the tokens sit, you need to add 50 cc's of Fox 20 weight gold oil. I did a couple capfuls. Install the lower cap where the volume tokens sit. And keep in mind, I have not added any lower leg fluid to the air spring side quite yet. It's now time to add the lower leg fluid to the air spring side. So I'm using the Motor X 2.5 weight oil because I don't want my dust wiper to get clogged. Fox wants you to put 40 cc's in here. So it is a departure from the older forks that used a lot less oil. So there is a problem here. There could be a potential problem where the air spring sucks up the 2.5 weight oil, but it's a risk that I'm willing to take because I don't want my fork leaking. The air spring side is the brake side, so if you have a dust wiper leak on this fork, it could be catastrophic on your braking system. When doing the final tightening on this top cap, before you install the 5mm nut that holds it into place, you need to make sure you're holding the stanchion up. I'm actually using a jack stand, automotive jack stand, to hold the stanchion up. Final step on the air spring side is tightening up this 5mm. This bolts into the air spring and it simultaneously tightens that cassette top cap on the air spring side. Damper knob's pretty straightforward. Slowly push it into place and don't lose the ball bearing that's attached in there. Last couple steps on the damper, we have the 15mm nut. So you're going to tighten this down, and then you're going to put the socket on there and give it a nice little tap on the socket. This will crush the crush washer to ensure you have no leaks on the bottom of the fork, and then tighten it up. Reinstalling the rebound knob is pretty straightforward. It did come with a lot of Loctite from the factory, but I didn't add any back. Make sure you pump some air into the fork and depress it. This fork is pretty prone to having equalization problems. The last but super important step whenever servicing a fork is to make sure you clean the bottom of the fork really good. This way, during the first ride, you can spot any leaks that could have been caused from you servicing it.